Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine billions of years ago, a world just reeling from an impact. I mean, an impact so vast it makes the dinosaur one look, well, insignificant, like a speck.
Absolutely. A planet reshaping catastrophe. And it begs this huge question, doesn't it? Could anything, even the simplest life, actually survive that kind of immediate aftermath or maybe even start to recover?
Right? It sounds almost impossible. And how do you even look for clues, billions of years later? That's what we're diving into today. We've got some really fascinating source material here from Harvard University researchers. They're looking at these incredibly ancient rocks from South Africa for answers.
Yeah, this deep dive, it's centered on their work with these 3.3 billion-year-old silica crusts from the Mendon Formation. And the key thing is, these rocks formed geologically right after one of these absolutely massive asteroid impacts.
So our mission really is to see what these specific rocks, analyzed with some pretty advanced tech, tell us. What were conditions like right after this cataclysm? Was life actually there? Could it have been?
Exactly. And we're going to guide you through what they found, sort of layer by layer, uncovering the evidence and some frankly surprising ideas from this ancient scene.
Okay, so let's paint that picture. The Mendon Formation, South Africa. We're talking 3.3 billion years old.
Yeah.
Staggering. And the crucial context, like you said, is that these rocks formed immediately after a giant impact event. An impact, the research stresses, way bigger than the Chicxulub one, the dinosaur one.
It's hard to even visualize that scale difference. It's not just biosphere changing, it's planet changing. And what makes these Mendon rocks so significant potentially is that they might, just might, preserve signs of early microbes, an ecosystem that got going surprisingly soon after all that devastation.
So the research isn't just about, cataloging old rocks. It's about figuring out the processes. What environmental factors, what biological activity could have possibly been happening in that window to form these structures? What allowed it?
Yeah. And, well, this is where the really cool tech comes in. They used a system called Atlas X MicroXRF. So XRS is X-ray fluorescence. The micro part tells you it can analyze really, really tiny areas.
Got it. So it's like a super precise elemental scanner. It hits the rock with X-rays, reads the signal, and maps out exactly what elements are where.
That's it, precisely. And it's vital here because it lets them build these detailed elemental maps across the rock sample. It's how you track the geological patterns and just maybe biological traces left behind in the layers.
And they focus on specific minerals too, right? Tourmaline crystals, to sort of trace the non-biological side of the story.
Yes. The hypothesis was that tourmaline would pop up more in layers formed by purely chemical processes, abiotic precipitation, and the Atlas X map, specifically looking for iron, which often gets into tourmaline, helped pinpoint those zones.
Okay, using iron as a kind of marker for the purely geological stuff.
Clever.
It helps distinguish the different formation styles within the very same piece of rock. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Reading the layers, the laminations, using those elemental maps, they found distinct differences in the textures of these layers.
Yeah, very clear differences. They noted these crinkly laminations, and these are often interpreted by geobiologists as potential signs of life. Maybe microbial mats were growing, trapping sediment, making things. Well, crinkly suggests periods of more intense biological activity shaping those layers.
Okay, so crinkly might mean microbes were active, but there were other layers too. Smoother ones.
Exactly, smooth laminations. And these seem to tell a different tale. They likely represent times when it was mostly just minerals precipitating chemically out of the water, no major biological influence. And crucially, the Atlas X maps showed more of that tourmaline, that marker mineral, in these smooth layers. It supports the idea that abiotic, non-biological processes dominated when those layers were forming. Ah, okay. So the rock itself is showing this back and forth. Crinkly layers, possibly life-influenced, then smooth layers, more purely chemical. That alternation really backs up the idea that conditions weren't static after the impact. Different processes, maybe biological, maybe environmental, were taking turns controlling how these structures grew.
Precisely. It points to a dynamic environment, not just a dead zone slowly recovering. But the story isn't just in the texture, it's also deep in the chemistry, which that elemental mapping revealed.
Right. The rocks are mainly silica, COU. That makes them chert, which isn't surprising for rocks this old, from the Archean eon.
True, chert is common, but the Atlas X didn't just say, yep, it's chert. It picked up these really important variations within the silica, little chemical clues.
And one of the big ones was finding potassium and chromium, concentrated in certain areas. especially into the bottom of the sample.
Yes, and that combination, potassium and chromium together, especially in that geological setting, it's a pretty strong pointer for geochemists. It strongly suggests the presence of solidified lavas,
Yeah.
volcanic rock, basically, cooled magma, solidified lava at the base of these post-impact deposits. Why is that so important? What does that mean for potential life?
Well, think about it. The landscape has just been potentially obliterated, scoured clean by this mega impact. These fresh volcanic flows could have provided the first stable surfaces, maybe even nutrient-rich surfaces. They could have been the crucial foothold, the foundation where microbial communities could start to colonize and grow again, finding a niche in all that chaos.
Wow. Okay, so let's put it all together. You've got the textures, crinkly versus smooth layers, suggesting alternating conditions. You've got the chemistry, like iron linked to tourmaline, hinting at abiotic processes in some layers. And then you find this potential volcanic foundation, the lava base, that could have supported life's comeback. This combination of mapping the elements and looking closely at the structure, it's really opening a window, isn't it?
It really is. It lets scientists start to piece together the actual environmental conditions right after that giant impact. Conditions that, based on this evidence, seem to include stable places to live and these changing environments where microbes weren't just maybe hanging on, but actively shaping the rock record. And remember, this is billions of years before anything like an animal or plant existed. We're talking very early, simple life.
And the significance goes beyond just Earth's ancient past, doesn't it? This has implications elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Understanding these signatures, the geological ones, the potential biological ones, in 3.3 billion-year-old rocks here gives us a vital reference. Think about Mars. Its surface is covered in craters. It clearly had a history packed with impact events.
So what we figure out about life potentially recovering after a huge impact here, that could help us interpret what we see on Mars, if we find similar rock types or textures there.
That's the idea. If we find Martian rocks formed after big impacts that show similar chemistry, similar structures, having this Earth-based example analyzed with tools like the Atlas X by the Harvard team, led by David Madrigal-Trejo, it gives us a much better framework, a way to potentially interpret Martian geology in terms of past environments and just maybe past life. It's like learning to read Mars's history using Earth's oldest chapters.
It's just incredible thinking that tiny chemical variations in rocks, this ancient teased out by modern tech, can tell such a huge story about life's tenacity, early Earth.
It really is. It shows how much information is locked away in the geological record and how far our tools have come to, unlock it.
So the story these old South African rocks are whispering, it seems to be one of resilience, maybe. Life finding a way or coming back quickly after this world-shattering event, leaving these faint clues in the rock's structure, its chemistry, that we can now start to read.
It definitely makes you appreciate how persistent life can be, finding ways to survive in environments that seem utterly hostile.
Absolutely. And it kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If this kind of super detailed elemental mapping, layer by tiny layer, can pull this story out of one rock slab, what other stories are waiting out there, hidden in other ancient rocks, here on Earth, or maybe even on Mars? Forgotten histories of early worlds, maybe even early life, just sitting there, encoded in the chemistry, waiting for us to look closely enough.